What's up, Packers fans? Welcome back to another edition of Carry the G in MKE. I'm Aaron Nagler. Joining me, as always, is my co-host, Camille Davis. Camille, happy Victory Monday. I don't know what to do. This is getting to be routine now, these Victory Mondays. I'm down. I could get used to it, you know?
I could too, and that's the piece I really am focusing on here and thinking about getting used to it. You win a
Mm,
few games there, and then what happens? Expectations begin, and
right.
now the Packers have that 7th seed in the NFC right now. They're that wild card team if the season ends today, which it doesn't. If it did,
I always love that phrase because, like, if the season ended today, everyone would go, "What the hell is going on?
like why did
Why
it
is the
happen?
season ending today?"
But
Very
hey,
true.
like now we've seen like we talked about it, we wanted to see more consistency with this Packers team, and now we're starting to see it. And what comes of this from now is going to be so fascinating to watch because you just know that narrative around the team is going to change because they've put things on tape now and they've won some games to the point where you expect different things from them now.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that jumps out from that game, and there are going to be, you talk about narratives, there are going to be a lot of narratives around the officiating, around the fact that, the defense allowed, I guess I'll say, the Chiefs to march the field a couple times. It was very rare that they got stops, and then when they did, it was very, clearly a big swing in the game for Green Bay. But the way the offense operated and how efficient they were, and it was never pressing. I mean, the one maybe notable exception is the 4th and 1 chuck it up for Romeo play, but outside of that, there was never a feel of desperation. It was always in control, and obviously that starts with Jordan and the way he was able to control things at the line of scrimmage, the way he was able to get and process information and take advantage of it. I mean, we're seeing a young quarterback who is really starting to shine. And I mean, if you're a Packers fan, how can you not be excited by that?
Like I was trying to like hide my smile as you were queuing that part up where I'm just like, oh my gosh, like
Right?
we're seeing it. Like, think about his performance against the Chiefs 2 years ago that we saw, or 3 years ago at this point, when Aaron
Mm.
Rodgers had the COVID and he had to step in on short notice, and he got blitzed to death in that game. And to hear Jordan throughout the week mention like, "I've been waiting to play the Chiefs again," and then after the win saying like, "I had
Oh,
this circled."
when he literally said 100% revenge game, I mean,
Yeah.
most guys don't usually cop to that. They're
Mm-mm.
like, oh, it's another game. Like, I want to make sure I'm good for the team or whatever. But man, he embraced it. I loved that.
I do too. And that's the thing about Jordan. Like the traits that we saw with him in the preseason in the past games when he's made stop appearances, we're like, oh, well, he always seems like a guy who doesn't tend to get too up, too down. He's always pretty poised. And he's continued that through this season, through the ups and the downs so far. And it's so impressive watching him now during these wins and having this composure. And when you've seen everything around him clicking, like he's having time in the pocket to make reads, even against the Chiefs defense. Like they got through a couple of times and he was pressured a few times, but overall on the evening itself, the offensive line held up pretty well in pass protection for Jordan Love to be able to process the reads, to make checks, to do what he needs to do to facilitate that offense. And you're just watching Jordan Love and you're just like, wow, like this kid is really putting together. Like he's cut down on some of the inconsistent throws where you're like, he missed somebody.
Yeah.
Like the passes are getting more accurate, they're on time. And I mean, part of it could be, just getting used to the system. Game reps, you need those. And the receivers also getting on the same page with him and understanding where they need to be on the field and also making plays for him. Like they made some pretty big catches throughout that game there.
What was, I mean, it's funny you talk about the accuracy. I mean, the touchdown to Watson is insane, right? Where I'm sorry, there are several. The one where they send heavy pressure and he, knows exactly where he's going to go with the ball, and he puts that ball in a place where only his guy can get it, and the defensive back is right there, but
Mhm.
it's pretty much futile. They have a really good connection, he and Watson. But it's interesting because you know, on the touchdown to Watson where he steps up, and it looks like he's going to run, but then he holds off and he sees Watson coming across and hits him. Like the play previous to that, he has that crosser to Watson where he throws basically behind both Watson and the defender. So it's like some of that inaccuracy is still there and it still comes out maybe every once in a while. But for the most part, he's putting the ball where he wants it. And the fact that he's able to not only do that, but then do all the work at the line of scrimmage with protections, because that's not like they were shy when it came to getting after Jordan Love and trying to get him off the spot. And when protection did break down,
Mhm.
what really struck me was his way of knowing where his outlets were. Where, okay, this is clearly a throwaway. Like, I'm just getting rid of it so I don't get sacked, right? But I'm not going to put the ball in harm's way. There were so few opportunities for the Kansas City defense to make a play on the ball last night, and as we've heard Matt LaFleur talk about all the time, the ball is
That's
life, man. Like, the
it
ball, you
is.
you you took one away from Mahomes. That was the swing for the entire game, and Mahomes puts the ball in jeopardy there. Jordan Love never did that. Outside of maybe that fourth down throw to Dobbs. I mean, such an impressive performance from Love. There's going to be a lot talked about around the rest of this game, but we all know this year is about Jordan Love and about
Mhm.
his progression and development. And man, the way he has improved week to week, and then to go against that defense, hasn't allowed more than 24 points against an opponent all season long, going back to last year, and they put up 27, and they controlled the game the entire time
Mhm.
because of Jordan Love. Man, I'm excited. I'm just, how can you? It's just, he is so impressive. And here's the other thing: he's still got stuff to work on, and he's getting
Yeah.
better. He hasn't hit
Yeah.
his ceiling yet.
We have not seen the fully realized version of this offense yet because these guys are still growing. And like you mentioned, this season was about figuring out, is Jordan Love the guy? Because we know when it comes to roster construction with NFL teams, you have to find the guy at quarterback to make sure that your team's going to
Amen.
have a chance to win.
Yeah.
So when you're the Green Bay Packers, a franchise that went from Brett Favre to Aaron Rodgers, about 30 years of outstanding Hall of Fame quarterback play, so many people were looking at the Packers now like, well, is this going to continue? Is this going to, like, what are they going to do? And the pressure that comes with that, like, it's hard being a starting quarterback as it is.
Right.
But when
Point
you're
blank.
walking
Right.
into a situation where you're following Favre and Rodgers, like two cornerstone quarterbacks, it's not just following one legend, you're following two. And you're trying to figure out your own way within there. Like, I give so much respect for Jordan Love for being able to kind of navigate the narrative waters around him as well, keeping that noise around him outside focused and week to week getting better. It feels like every time we've gotten together the last 4 weeks now, it's like, man, that was Jordan Love's best
Best
game.
game. That's
The
so
next week,
funny.
that's his best game.
Yeah. I'm wondering when that, like, when's the game gonna happen where it's like the pundits and all the observers don't say, "Well, that was Jordan Love's best game yet," like, because that's. But I don't think they're telling tales out of school. That's the thing. I don't think it's hyperbole. I think that's
Yeah.
the truth. He's played his best game every week for the last like 4 weeks.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And they keep incrementally getting better. Uh, Obviously, you're going to always talk a lot about Jordan Love, but I do want to touch on the receivers and the work they've done, um, because they have to be on the same page for the quarterback to be able to operate the offense the way Jordan is. I mean, how many times do we see him get to the line of scrimmage last night, touch the helmet, get into another play, adjusting protection, and then trusting and knowing where those guys are going to be. Um, I mean, Romeo is like your workhorse, right? I think there's zero doubt now that he is a complementary piece, as he should be. He's still going to have his touchdown catches, right? He's still going to get his. There's no doubt about it. But the way Watson has come to life here these last 2 weeks, I mean, you talk about a guy, a dog, if you will, who you can put him in any position. And here's hoping. I know the initial report we got this morning from NFL Network was that hopefully this isn't long term, but it is a hamstring injury, which we know for Watson is, always troublesome. But
Yeah.
man, yeah, he's finally hitting that stride that we all knew Watson could, and it's exciting to see.
It feels similar to last year, coming on a little bit late into the season and just kind of went. And once you start getting cooking with Watson, like Watson just continues to turn the gas up. It feels like.
Mm,
So again, like you were saying, I hope the hamstring injury isn't anything really serious with him. It is the same hammy, I believe, that he had problems with earlier. So those soft tissue injuries are tough. And I mean, we saw how it affected him early in the season. Like he started
right.
kind of off, kind of wonky and just unsure. I mean, all the receiver core, they had some moments where they're running run routes and things of that sort. But with Watson, it's like once when he feels good, you can tell. And when
Yeah.
he is on top of how he feels and able to do what he does, like it's impressive to see. He adds an element to this Packers offense that you really need as that vertical threat, that especially being that his size and that speed. And I think we mentioned it last week with this receiving core where it's like there's Watson on paper is like we think he's our number one, but Jordan Love spreads the ball out to everyone where it comes to the point where you're like, if you're the defense, who are you really trying to quote unquote take away
100%, right.
from Love at this point? Because everybody is flashing, everybody's showing. You mentioned Dobbs, talked about Watson, and those two guys, I think, really had good games against the Chiefs, and it was really nice to be able to say, yeah, Dobbs and Watson had their game because I think last week or the week before we're like, hey, it's the rookies' turn against like the
Yeah.
Lions. Like, hey, the rookies are really stepping up, and this week it's like, oh, it's our vets, quote unquote,
The
stepping up in
grizzled
those
2-year veterans.
yeah, yeah. And that's
Right.
the fun thing about this team too. And we've talked about it where like I'm excited for this season. I'm not, rushing past it, but I just keep thinking to myself as well, like, what are they going to look like next year with another,
It's crazy
offense
to
under their
think.
belt?
Right. No, it's exciting. It's interesting though because talk a lot about the quarterback and the receivers and the passing game, which is the excitement, right?
Mhm.
But it's so fascinating to see last night how they controlled the ball with the running game and AJ Dillon and how that contributed to their success because look, once you get pass happy, especially against Spagnuolo, and you start trying to throw it all over the place, like he's going to get after you and you're going to have problems. And we saw that, especially in the second half,
Yep.
when they leaned on AJ. And they're not a great running team by any stretch of the imagination, but the way they controlled the game, I mean, they had those two long touchdown drives, keeping Mahomes off the field
The
while
best
they're
defense.
at it. You know, they may not be like the prettiest, they may not be the most productive, but the running game last night was really effective for what they wanted to do on offense in controlling the ball and keeping ahead of the sticks. I mean, it's a hell of a lot easier to operate in second and 5 than it is in second and 10 plus. And time and again, AJ was getting tough yards and putting them in advantageous positions just throughout the running game.
Again, the progress that we see there, right? Because we've talked about how challenging it can be to not have the run game and how you just needed to be good enough to keep some of that pressure off of
Right.
Love at this point where it's like we just don't want to continuously be in third and long every single time we get here. Can we get some third and shorts, third and 3, third and 4? And the Chiefs defense, like we know, is really good against the pass. So for Jordan Love to have that success he did against this Chiefs defense, I mean, the run game had a big piece to do with that. And we know the Chiefs have struggled against the run so far this season, but
Right. I think they
the
were
Packers run
28th
game in
coming into
itself
the
has been a struggle. So,
right.
it was a
Right.
battle of struggles. Who was going to get the upper hand? And the Packers run game got enough done. Even the run by Patrick Taylor when he came in, and you're just like, we needed this in this moment. And
Yeah.
it helps up the pass action, which also helps Love's game. Like it's complementary football at its best when all the phases are working together. The line was holding up pretty decently. The run game did enough. Jordan Love was able to get things moving down the field through the air with the receivers. Like the offense, when we got to the fourth quarter, I think Chris Collinsworth made a comment like, if the Packers don't get a touchdown here,
Hmm.
uh, I feel sorry for their chances with Pat Mahomes getting the ball back because it feels like he's going to score a touchdown. And I'm like, I mean, yeah, I get it. Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. Like it's
Yep.
Patrick Mahomes and we only got a field goal out of it. So, and I was nervous. I'm not going to lie to you, Aaron.
I know. Corey was
I
saying the
was
same thing on
nervous.
Watch Party. It's like we got to get a touchdown. We can't settle for a field goal, and then they did.
But
And you're like,
luckily,
I think everybody in the building's probably thinking that at that point.
that
I mean,
anxiousness where you're just like,
I get it.
we can't
It's
do
Pat
it. And I was
Mahomes. I get it.
sitting there like,
Mahomes is no joke.
I understand everybody felt playing the Packers for years when it's like, oh God, there goes Aaron Rodgers. Like,
I know someone did say, I think it was Monty on Twitter. It was like listening to Collinsworth like just praise Mahomes all night. Now I know what other fans felt like every time Rodgers was on
other fans, yeah,
television.
for
I
sure, for
mean,
sure.
those are the rock stars, and they're going to always give them shine. But let's talk about the defensive effort against Mahomes and the offense because, look, again, like I was saying, it was, and Matt, I think, alluded to this in his post-game presser. It was similar in feel that first half to the game against the Vikings the COVID year in Lambeau, where
Mm.
both teams only got like 2 possessions in the half because they both had these long, grinded out, really efficient drives that just, went on for like 12, 15 plays. And I mean, I get that, you know, Joe Barry is going to keep, for the most part, going to stick to coverage. He's going to play everything in front of him. The only kind of time I really got frustrated was on the 3rd and 18, where they send the 3-man rush and drop everybody into coverage. And it's like, I understand it. I get it conceptually, but man, I just hate that passiveness. Like, let's give our guys a chance to compete, especially against Travis Kelsey, who is the one guy who can really kill you in that situation. But overall, I mean, it's fascinating to watch the Packers put out that stat last night where the Packers have now held opponents to 24 points or under in 8 straight games. First time that's happened since 2010 when they did it 9 times in a row. I mean, that's the name of the game, right? Keeping points off the board, and the Packers did it. So, yeah, as frustrating as Joe and his defense can be at times, sure feels like it's working on the wideout. If you pull back and you look at it, in the minutia, it's kind of frustrating. You pull back, it's effective and it's working.
And that's the thing where it's like it's working, and it's working to the point where it's like Joe Barry's hot seat's getting cooler and
Yep.
cooler and
Yep.
cooler and cooler as the season continues. And I'm sure there's a subset of people who are having internal conflicts
I'm
about
not
it.
so sure I'm not one of them, Camille.
Yeah,
So, I might be joining them.
where
It's
it's like
tough.
because you see where you're like, this just doesn't feel like it's a dominant defense. Like this is like with some of the pieces that we have. You, at least I'll speak for myself.
Hmm.
With the talent that this defense has, I expect a lot more from what they can be able to produce as some
Right.
of their whole parts. I know we had the injuries, so that is taken into consideration. And the way that Joe Barry plays, what we've talked about, just giving all that space, like, hey, I'm keeping everything in front of it. You have to dink and dime us the whole way down the field if you want. I don't care if it's 3rd and 1. We're playing off. Like it's
Right.
it's where it's frustrating where it's like that, but then you look at what the results have been for this team, and it's thinking about, is it by hook or is it by crook, where it's like we're seeing them hold the defense or hold opposing offenses under 20, under 24, and it's consistent at this point where you're like, the injury still, and this defense is still doing
Well,
enough.
and that's the thing, right? Like if Jair's in there and they have the frontline safeties and everyone's healthy, I don't think the play style changes
It
much,
doesn't.
but he's probably a bit more kind of open to calling a few more pressures or calling a little bit more press man, which he did at times last night. He always kind of dials coverages up. But to do what he's doing as far as keeping points off the board, when he's starting a 7th round rookie and Ballantyne at corner, I'm sorry, that's pretty damn impressive. And to do it against Pat Mahomes, even though that offense is not what it's been in years past, that's still a top flight quarterback, who you kept basically in check all night long. So yeah, it's frustrating in the moment, but it's not like the results aren't good. So what can you
What can you do?
what can you say?
Yeah.
It is interesting to see the play of those rookies, right? Because we focus so much on the offense and the young guys there. Um, Valentine, I don't think there's ever been a more kind of crystallized moment of how young this team is than that play at the end where it looked like maybe it's a fumble. It turns out it wasn't. But Valentine scoops the ball up and he's running down the sideline for a touchdown. And I love that there's a shot from NBC that shows like basically every coach on the sideline yelling to get down, get down. Because if he goes down, the game's over. Just get on the floor, dude. But he's a rookie. He's excited. He's in Lambeau. He's ready to do his leap. So, but hey, the youth, right? That's what this team is all about. It is by far the youngest team in the league, and to see that youth get this experience, it's got to make you excited for when you do get a Jair back and you do maybe
Mhm.
get some reinforcements next season. Like, man, it can be frustrating at times, but the talent is undeniable. And now that talent is really starting to, lean on knowing the scheme and knowing the defense and knowing what they're being asked to do, but they still can tap into that athleticism. They can still tap into all of the, athletic traits and explosiveness and all of that basically got them on the squad in the first place.
Yeah. And your point about that play reminds me of just the Bucks, how Adrian Griffin mentioned about Andre Jackson Jr. Like, he's young, and sometimes his inexperience is a great thing. Like, his ignorance actually works out sometimes because
Right.
to be young, you're just kind of out there and you're just trying to make a play. You're just trying to do whatever it is that you can do, and that sums up this Packers team a lot with their youth players. And to show up big in a Thanksgiving Day game against the Lions, to show up big in Sunday Night Football against the defending Super Bowl champions with the Chiefs, those are big wins, and it's always easy to get up for big games. Now, the Giants are up next,
Mm,
and this is
this
one
is
of those
interesting.
games where it's
Yes.
like you've been able to get up for the big opponents, but can you take care of business and do what you need to do against this Giants team that as we've seen, isn't that great this particular season.
Nope.
So, can you continue to have that level of focus, level of energy? Can you execute at such a high rate against this team as well when it's not a big game to get up for? It's another game along your way to possibly making the playoffs. Like, so
Crazy.
it's all about how you want to frame it. So it's going to be really
Right.
interesting seeing how they come out against the Giants as well after having two really big good games against two high end opponents in the NFL.
Well, what's interesting too is, the thing I think that will probably help them is the fact that it is in prime time.
Monday
This
night,
game
yeah.
didn't get flexed, so they're on Monday Night Football, and it's like last time they were on Monday Night Football, they were embarrassed in Vegas. I think there's some element to the whole country's watching. We don't want to be embarrassed, and we are a much better team than we were back then. But yeah, I mean that's what's crazy about this. The youth of this team in general is, man, these last two games have been so exciting and so great, and we are in the playoff conversation. It's awesome. I'm not going to bat an eye if they lose to the Giants. This is a team that beat them last year. They're it's a week to week league. This is a team that, and Matt said it last night. The league will humble you quick, and I
Yeah,
can't think of anything more humbling than getting these two wins and then turning around with an extra day and then losing to one of the worst teams in the league. That would be
yeah,
humbling. That's how you get humbled. But it
it
wouldn't
is.
surprise me. That's the thing. Like, I know everyone thinks, oh, they're on the up and Jordan Love's arrived and everything, the future is bright, which I agree. But there's still going to be tough times. There's still going to be frustrations and stretches of maddening play and things that don't go right. And it's how you respond to that. Like, and now they're tasting a little success, which is awesome. But how do you respond to success? To your point, like it's
Exactly.
easy to get up for these games that no one expects you to win. It's us against the world, kind of playing with house money. Now, what do you do when everybody expects you to beat down this Giants team? How
That's
are
the
you going
deal.
to respond?
And they expect the Packers to win against the Giants at Monday. Like at this point, like the shift is going to happen. And now it's like, okay, now you're starting to play a little bit with expectations. And how are you
Hmm.
going to respond to that aspect of it as well? So it's fun. Like it's still, I would love to just say again, I know the last couple of weeks have been exciting because we're seeing progress. We're getting wins along the way with progress. But this still is a young team that's learning how to play with each other. They're still developing, they're still figuring things out. So, like you said, there's going to be ups and downs. I hope the down doesn't come against the Giants, but it could. It's
Right.
any given Sunday, as we always say, any given Monday, Sunday, Thursday, Saturday, Friday, whatever day the
Whenever
NFL
they're
chooses to play.
playing these days in the NFL,
Yeah,
anything is possible. It's so true. Camille, I can't thank you enough for the time. As always, let the folks know where they can find all of your good wares here on this internet.
for sure. Technical File Podcast, TECKNICAL. We cover the biggest stories from NFL, NBA, and the world of wrestling on a weekly basis. We're recording early this week because the Bucks are in the in-season tournament tomorrow. So Tech File
My
will be recorded.
Bucks, my
Yes, they'll be
Bucks.
recorded live this Monday. So today, if you're watching on the first day of this release, coming out on Tuesday, and then you can catch me throughout the week on Locked On Bucks, covering all things Milwaukee Bucks.
Love it. Camille, can't thank you enough. Monday Night Football, we will be a couple days later than usual next
Yep,
week. So if everyone's looking for it, don't worry. We didn't miss it. We're recording a day or two later. But Camille, thanks so much. I'll talk to you next week.
for sure.